Hello Zorgonians and welcome back to another YouTube video. And today we're here with another kinda smaller video. And it's sort of based around the fact of anime. Now, the most iconic anime in my opinion is Dragon Ball Z, and then next is Naruto, because those are the ones that I grew up on as a kid. Those are the ones that even most Americans have heard of. Dragon Ball Z was one of my favorite series, and still is really one of my favorite series. It's really, really awesome, and if you guys haven't watched it, it's cool. I will admit it has its flaws, but I'm not here to rag on about the story or anything. I'm here to discuss the possibility that one of the biggest plot holes in Dragon Ball Z was just overlooked completely. Now, if you don't know, I need to add a little bit of backstory, okay? So, originally Dragon Ball Z was going to end after the Cell Saga, because if you don't know, most animes are pretty short in retrospect, especially in anime format, so most don't even last more than 2 quote-unquote sagas. Most of them. And Dragon Ball Z didn't have too much filler compared to most other anime. But one of the big things within the Cell Saga is obviously Cell. Cell is a creature, a biomechanical android, if you will. Basically the pinnacle of creation that a human created, that is almost triple the power of most Saiyans. He's incredibly powerful, way more than most Saiyans, and he even overpowers some Super Saiyans. So it's obvious that Cell is the pinnacle of creation, and he's one of the perfect, most awesome things. However, there are 2 faults to his original design that lead to the events of the Cell Saga. One, he was created by a hell-bent scientist that had lost his life's work because of a small Saiyan that was raised on Earth named Goku. He lost everything when the Red Ribbon Army was defeated by Goku and his friends. That would drive anybody insane, and Dr. Gero was hell-bent on vengeance. But knowing that Goku was an extraordinary case, didn't automatically build another android and send it out to fight him. No, he studied him. He studied his techniques, and sooner or later he began collecting DNA and trying to build a petri dish of basically the best fighters on Earth. This led to him collecting Saiyan DNA, Frieza race DNA, human DNA, Namekian DNA, and many others. This led to the creation of Imperfect Cell. Now, remind you, this is in a different timeline, okay? In this different timeline, Dr. Gero releases 18 and 17, similar to what happens later in our timeline, the main timeline. And, of course, Dr. Gero was killed. And 17 and 18 roam the Earth, destroying what they wish, and the only 2 people that are left are Trunks and Gohan, and even they can't defeat them within the Super Saiyan form. So, in an offshoot timeline of that, Trunks comes back after learning the Super Saiyan Ascended form, destroys 17 and 18, and then proceeds to start celebrating, and right before he returns to the past to celebrate, Imperfect Cell overpowers him and kills him. Okay, so we're already getting into timelines here, but I'm trying to provide backstory on why this is important. So this Cell realizes that the time machine he's trying to go back in is too small for him, so he reverts to his larval state to not only regenerate and to conserve energy, but also to be able to fit into the time machine. So he goes back to the main timeline where Trunks is now, and obviously this is a few years beforehand. Now, keep in mind that there are 3 cells at this point. The one that is later killed by Trunks when he goes back, the one that is returned to the main timeline, and the one that is in the main timeline. Now, the cells that are actually a threat at this point in time are the first and second cell we get to see. The Imperfect Cell that was left in Trunks' original timeline, the future Trunks that we know of, that one is still back there with 17 and 18, and they haven't been destroyed yet. So that cell's there. That's still a threat to future Trunks. And then there's the cell that killed Trunks and then returned to the past. This cell is the most dangerous because now 17 and 18 are still around, and this cell can now use the Z-Warriors to his advantage by basically manipulating them into fighting the androids so that he can track them down. Because in Trunks' timeline, 17 and 18 can't be sensed by regular means, and since Cell is a biomechanical organism, he can sense Ki. Unfortunately, this also means that he can't sense 18 and 17. So, he didn't have anyone to manipulate in that timeline because Gohan was dead and Trunks was hiding. So, that would have left him roaming forever and ever, but now that he's in the main timeline, he can manipulate all the Z-Warriors into tracking down 17 and 18. But, shortly after they find out the existence of Cell, they immediately come to the conclusion that there is a Cell in their timeline, which they are not incorrect about this, but it's in its larval state. Not even a larval state, in an infantile fetal state. It wasn't a threat at any form. Its power level was ridiculously low. It couldn't even feel yet. In fact, this isn't canon or anything, but in Team 4-Star, there's even some regret among Trunks and Krillin because of the fact that they're basically aborting a child that hasn't even seen the light of day. So the reason why this is such a big plot hole, I'll tell you why. The reason why is because Dr. Gero specifically states multiple times that he mixed different DNA. And if you look around a bit, you can even understand that Cell is evil because he didn't use as much of Goku's DNA, as much as Krillin's or Gohan's. He focused on the more powerful and sometimes more evil Vegeta, Frieza, and all the other villains that they had faced. So that's why Cell is evil. We don't even know if Cell would have been loyal to Gero. He does call him father at some points, creator, but we don't know if he would have even been loyal to Gero. He could have easily backstabbed him like Majin Buu did to Babidi. So it would make sense that he's evil because he was given the wrong genes. However, we have at least two of the world's best minds, Bulma and her father, and if you include Trunks, because he's pretty damn smart too, we have some of the greatest minds on Earth, the Z-Warriors, at our disposal. And they couldn't spend 5 minutes to reconfigure the gene distribution so that Cell didn't come out evil, he came out good. Think about this for a moment. Cell was defeated because of his arrogance. If they made a new Cell, that I personally refer to as Lek, if they gave him more of Goku's genes and maybe put some restraints on him, a biomechanical android is one of the best possible situations that can come out. The reason why is simple. Namekians can heal, and Saiyans, when they're damaged and they heal back up to full health, they are much more powerful. A Zenkai boost is it's called. So, basically, what Cell can do, if he really wanted, is not blast himself in the chest or anything, but he can allow his enemies to get him so close to death that the Zenkai comes into activation, and then he uses his Namekian powers to heal himself. Now, although it's debated that this whole self-destruct thing shouldn't have happened, it shouldn't have given him a Zenkai boost, I think it was more of the stress and the pain that was given to Cell by Super Saiyan 2 Gohan and Super Saiyan Goku. Personally, I think it was the stress and the pain that Cell endured that allowed him the Zenkai boost. I could be wrong there, but he did get thoroughly fucked back on Earth by Gohan and Goku. So anyways, he receives this whole Zenkai boost, and he's equal, on par, if not greater than Super Saiyan 2 Gohan. Take this for a moment. The one that originally was weaker than a Super Saiyan is now stronger than a Super Saiyan 2. With this power, he's invincible to the point that only one single cell needs to survive. And the only reason Gohan beat him is because he annihilated every single cell, which was lucky and kinda, whatever. It's very unlikely, but it still happened. You would have to be able to completely and utterly decimate Cell. You would have to get him caught completely in an attack for you to be able to utterly decimate and destroy every single cell. A biomechanical ally that can regenerate from one cell is one of the best things that you could have. In fact, this also means he could absorb enemies. In fact, he could probably absorb allies and obtain knowledge from them. So, let's put it this way. If this potential cell that I named Lek personally, if this cell was given some of Goku's genes and some of the Z Fighters genes instead of Vegeta and Frieza and shit, he would have turned out good. Maybe neutral, but mostly good. He would have had some form of allegiance towards Bulma at the very least, because Bulma would have probably been the one to do the field work and change genetic distribution. And then, think about it this way. If he can regenerate, even if he's one of the weakest, even if he's essentially fucking Krillin, if he's as weak as Krillin somehow in the later parts of the series, he would still be useful. Because he would be a useful distraction. All he had to do was make his enemy think that he's super weak, the enemy would underestimate him, and then all he would have to do is let him, quote-unquote, die, regenerate. And that's not even saying if he absorbed Dende. If he absorbed part of Dende, like the arm or something, he could heal. And if he could heal, it would essentially be having a limited supply of sensu beans, essentially. All you would have to do is have this Lek guy on standby, and even if the enemy attacked him, like Frieza did with Dende, once Frieza figured out that Dende could heal, all he would have to do is regenerate and start healing again. This is the perfect situation for the Z Fighters. Not only does this mean they could push their limits, because they have a healer on standby, but it also means that they can push their limits of their power. Because, let's say for instance, if Vegeta and Goku went all out, Vegeta Super Saiyan 2, Vegeta Super Saiyan 2, and Goku Super Saiyan 2, they fall all out, and let's say one of them at the end of the fight's near dead. All they would have to do is get Lek to heal them, and then the fight would be reversed, and so on and so forth. This is the perfect situation for Saiyans, to have a healer that cannot be killed, and can almost completely and utterly resuscitate allies. This is the perfect situation for them. And it's so overglanced, because this cell that I call Lek wasn't even, like, they were so fearful and so stupid, they didn't even think. They didn't think. They still don't say, we probably could have changed that. The perfect creation of humanity, and these motherfuckers had the gall to just destroy it without trying to edit it. Sure, it would have been difficult. Obviously, Gero didn't leave Cell without any form of defense on the software's part. But come on, Bulma is literally been stated to be one of the smartest characters in the entire goddamn galaxy, if not universe. And definitely one of the smartest on Earth. So wouldn't you think that they would have spent the time to do that, when the fact was that this cell was years away from even slightly being a threat, because he wasn't even in his larval state when he saw him. This is the larval state. This is the state that Lek was in. There was no threat to the Z Fighters whatsoever, and they made a huge mistake. Even if Lek was weaker than most, he still would have been perfect for the Saiyans. And I honestly do not see the downside to having him. But I guess they just overlooked it in fear. But personally, if I was in their situation, if I hadn't even thought of the whole Lek thing, I would have at least been like, come on, shouldn't we be focusing on the actual androids and actual Cell? Because this Lek guy is years away from being a threat. At least then, it would have opened up the possibility of Lek being a thing. But now, there's no possibility for that. And it kind of saddens me. Because it's like, there were so many avenues that they could have done. Like, maybe Lek could have gone to a different timeline to absorb 17 and 18 to become perfect. He could have absorbed Majin Buu, or Majin Buu could have absorbed Lek. There were so many things that could have opened up, but they just completely and utterly ignored it. And I made this theory up back in 2013, by the way, when I was first beginning to watch Team 4 Star. It made me think, like, how did they not realize that genetic distribution, even though Gero probably had protection, could have been broken through, and they could have manipulated it, so even if they failed, Lek would return and he could have absorbed Cell, even after Cell 1. It was the perfect situation and outcome. And I still don't understand why this isn't even expanded upon. There are universes within Super now where, like, the Saiyans survive and they're actually good, or all the Namekians fused into one person and they're super fucking godlike, or Akai took Goku's body. There are so many things that they were, like fandom, essentially, that they incorporated into Super, yet they never talk about biomechanical beings. They didn't even talk about the potential of Cell in another universe. And it kind of makes me angry, because Cell was, like, personally, for me, Cell was my second favorite character in the entire series. The first being Majin Buu in his super form, his super intelligent form. And it's because Cell isn't... he's a victim. I know it sounds stupid, but it's a victim. He didn't have a choice in who he was. You could say the same thing for Majin Buu, I suppose. But Majin Buu's absorbed people and he's become good. He can make a choice. We know that because Majin Buu's now an integral character. Then there's Frieza, who also could have made a fucking choice, but he's just pure evil. Vegeta also made the choice to become good. But Cell never had a choice. He was a victim of his own time, and even then, he never felt regret. He just embraced the fact that he didn't have a choice. And that's, like, true acceptance of oneself. And that's why I love Cell. And it made me angry that they never even tried to expand upon Cell's character or the possibilities of him returning. The only other time after the Cell saga that I can remember is during GT when Goku goes through hell. And even then, like, it's just, I don't know. To me personally, I think that this was a really, really good theory. We know it's basically headcanon at this fact. Like, you can dispute it, I suppose, but it's basically headcanon, and I just personally think that I wish they would have expanded upon it. And I'm sorry for repeating myself. But anyways, thank you, Zorgonians, for watching the video, and please rate, comment, like, and subscribe, Zorgonians.